People are even paying. We know it. It's not even, we are not hiding. People are buying for this. I would want to see, once you have joined the police, to be in those areas for 1 year. Let's see people paying for those. People will not pay. At least 1 year in Bonny Forest before you come and do regular service in the police.
They will quit the service.
Yeah, we don't want them. We want to have tough, only really capable young men and women to go to our discipline forces. Tourism has been reduced to sex tourism at the coast. Tourism has been reduced to running after animals and seeing the Maasai dance. That cannot even be an eighth of what this country has to offer. In terms of tourism, this country has so much to offer.
Out of 10, how will you rank him?
2 out of 10. 0. There's nothing. He has not done anything.
But he's the face of tourism in Kenya.
Which face? Give it to a serious Kenyan like me and you see. How much is tourism bringing in this country, by the way? You'll be ashamed.
Truly delighted that you've joined us on this edition of Business Glide here on Herman Manyora's channel. My name is Richard Mwanja. The Kenyan Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife continues to substantively contribute to the growth of the Kenyan economy. Under this docket, wildlife tourism has profiled itself as the most prized asset of wildlife tourism. It has over the years continued to contribute substantively in tunes of billions of shillings to the national government, under which the National Treasury has been able to meet part of its development as well as recurrent expenditure. Now, in this particular edition of Business Glide, we take a deep look into this sector. What are the systemic failures in terms of its administration? Nonetheless, we look at issues such as human-wildlife conflict and the contentious subject of compensation of claims for those who have succumbed to injuries of wildlife attacks. To bring this conversation home, I'm joined by none other than the man himself, renowned public scholar, Herman Manyora. Professor, welcome on set.
Thank you, Richard.
All right. We have seen scars and losses of property, and even at times death mark the interaction of communities living adjacent to national reserves with this very wildlife. Now, many have gone on record and say the compensation process is more at times troublesome. Do you feel as a country we have had enough regulatory framework that guides the compensation of victims of wildlife injuries?
I think it's not the laws or the regulation. I think to me it's much more the philosophy.
I see.
Much more a question of how much we understand the problem. And whether we have been able to move away from the colonial philosophy or understanding of the whole issue of human-wildlife conflict. Because we haven't moved from that, then we are seeing the problems we are seeing. Very simple. If a white tourist was knocked down and perhaps killed by an elephant, then you followed and the attention to receive, just the attention, forget about even the money, including international. And then some 10 Africans are killed. The attention to get, to say nothing about the compensation, that is where the problem is.
All right.
We have not moved away from the Mzungu way of viewing the African as subhuman in matters of human-wildlife relationship.
All right. Kenya has capped maximum compensation of those who've succumbed to death from wildlife attack at 5 million Kenya shillings. And at times, even those who are not beyond the age of 18 are not compensated. A case was recorded in Narok County whereby a boy was almost killed by a buffalo. But he was told because he's not over 18 years, he cannot be compensated. Do you mean that the life of probably a Maasai person living around Masai Mara isn't justifiable enough to be in existence just because you are not beyond 18 years?
That's what I'm telling you, the mindset, the philosophy. We are still in the Mzungu capture. You see, during the colonial time, really the African and the animal were one and the same. You know, and not much premium was placed on an African life.
I see.
Over the years, we have improved. Even what you are saying, 5 million, is a serious improvement on what has been there. Because of the shame. But we have not yet quite understood the whole problem well. We haven't understood that these Kenyans, these Africans, have lived with these animals for ages. Even the approach to afforestation, to matters of forests. You know, we kick people out of the forest. We use some thinking from foreigners. But people like the Ogek, for example, the trees, the tree in the Mao forest is more important to Ogek than the Kenyan government.
I see.
He knows the value of the trees more than anybody else in this world. And therefore, he cannot, even his culture, you cannot go to a forest and cut a tree. You get it?
I get it.
But we believe the people who live with these animals don't know. They have coexisted over the years. Otherwise, they will have done to these animals what these Wazungus have done to the animals.
All right. With regards to wildlife tourism, we are seeing those who have come under attack of this wildlife, they have decided to go to the extent of even poisoning this wildlife. They are saying, even as much as they are making distress calls to, say, KWS officers, Kenya Wildlife Service officers, it takes so much time for them to respond. And they are saying, going forward, because they are not compensated for the damages, they will have to square it out with the wildlife themselves. One has to go down and they interact. Don't you see this posing enough threat for the existence of wildlife in the fullness of time?
In fact, we ain't seen nothing yet, as Americans would say.
Uh-huh.
This is going to be bloody. You know, look at the things that are going on in Laikipia.
Uh-huh.
If you continue showing Africans that these animals really are more important than them, if you say something has happened, if it happened to a Mzungu lady from somewhere,
I see.
the number of helicopters that will land there, the number of international media houses that will land there,
Just to report.
just to be there, the amount of resources that will put into the whole thing, it shows that the African is nothing in the view of these people. And that's what I'm saying. You are right to say that if we don't take care, people will take the law into their own hands. The moment they decide these animals really are doing more harm than good to us, we can as well forget it.
Isn't that enough clarion call for the Kenya Wildlife Service to probably employ more rangers just so to curb such issues?
It's not even a question of ranger. Research and practice has shown elsewhere. You can have communities protecting, for example, animals and forests more than laws and guns. You get it?
I see.
You see those, for example, in the forest we have those community associations. They protect the forest. In turn, they reap the benefits from the forest. They coexist. You don't even need a gun. You don't need a ranger. You need systems to be put in place where the people own those resources. They own the animals. They see the animals are being beneficial to them.
I see.
Bringing obvious, immediate benefit. And naturally, they protect and preserve and conserve those animals.
All right. Sticking to that context, we have seen a section of community around the Mara Game Reserve come forward and say they are going into loggerheads with the national government of the county government of Narok. And this is with regards to the share of revenue that's generated from that very particular game reserve. Why haven't we not seen equitable share? Because they are saying they cannot even get tangible benefit from the reserve, which is around their communities. Is it that the county government is taking too much, then it should also dispose to the local communities?
It is the whole problem that we do not seem to understand the problems we have. You look in the oil in Turkana, and then the people in Turkana were saying, look, you can't come and get our oil here. And these are Turkana people, you think they're backwards. You can't just come and get our oil here and tell us this. Put money on our M-Pesa. It shows community buy-in is absent. We need communication experts. Whenever we are mining in Kwale, in Turkana oil, wildlife, the community ought to have a buy-in. They should understand the entire enterprise. And within that matrix, what is their share? How do they fit in? And the rest is solved.
All right.
Once people understand, first they must understand what we in communication we call community buy-in. Once the people understand why you are mining, what it means to them, you taken care of things, they are concerned, their health and so on and so forth, their animals, the rivers, pollution and all these other things. The next phase is, do they have a role to play?
I see.
If there's employment, will they benefit from the employment and so on and so on, the revenue sharing. So in issues like, for example, in Narok, we need to move with speed to resolve this issue of sharing of resources between the national government and the county government, and go further, so that even the county government, it should also, under law,
I see,
be also sharing what they have with the people.
All right.
It cannot be the county government. The people must directly, it doesn't have to be money. We can say so much of that money from the Narok whatever game reserve, whatever it's called, a certain percentage will go to schools, a certain percentage to hospitals, because you can't give people money directly unless it's enough.
Absolutely.
Like that of oil. Yeah.
All right. Majority of our game reserves are unpatrolled, and they have carved a name for themselves, an infamous name for being the perfect hideouts for terror suspects, or rather those who've been charged with terrorism activities. If you look at the recent case of the three terrorism convicts who escaped from Community Maximum Prison, they were on their way to Boni Forest through the game reserves in the vast Kitui County. Now, is it the National Security Council isn't really giving this problem rather the urgency it needs in terms of responding to it, in terms of now tightening the security with regard to patrol of our game reserves, and also at the end of the day see that issues such as terror activities, talk of Westgate, do not come and dampen our economy one more time?
Yeah, these things are now tied up. We live in a complex world. The modern world has become so complex, you have to understand things from many directions.
Absolutely.
You have to understand security in a much more comprehensive way than we need. In national security is beyond what it used to be. It is strategic security. It includes whether we can survive because we have the economy to make us survive. It includes many other things. So when you're looking at tourism, you must look at tourism beyond just bringing in tourists and the animals they come and see.
I see.
You look at the facilities that you are using to bring in tourism and ask yourself, are they enhancing our economic status at the expense of our security? How do we mitigate? So these are things that I say require much more comprehensive analysis and understanding than we are so far. So those forests can be a danger. The government was trying even to clear parts of Boni Forest.
Definitely.
There could be a better way. That to me is a crude way. You could create buffer zones of human settlements. You know, in a forest you could create like some 20 kilometers in between and create a human settlement. That will solve it a bit. But it must be well planned and coordinated.
You also have to admit that we have also tightened our belt in terms of now putting more patrols in those reserves other than sticking to the roadblocks.
Yeah, that's not enough. Really what we do is so little. We need to, for example, I wonder, every young man wants to go to the army. Many young people want to go to the army, want to join the police. People are even paying. We know it. It's not even, we are not hiding. People are buying for this. I would want to see, once you have joined the police, to be in those areas for 1 year. Let's see people paying for those. People will not pay. At least 1 year in Boni Forest before you come and do regular service in the police.
They will quit the service.
Yeah, we don't want them. We want to have tough, only really capable young men and women to go to our discipline forces. You go in the army and in the next 2 years, you will be in those border places. You will be in Lamu.
Sticking to that, you referred to the point of Kenya Navy, not employing a person from Vigat serving the Navy.
Yes.
So we should also get people like our cameraman Bilal from Mandera now to go to places such as those.
They understand the terrain. You have seen even just castle rustling. You ask yourself, Richard, how can somebody drive 2,000 head of cattle stolen with modern telecommunications gear, with helicopters? How? You imagine moving 2,000 head of cattle accompanied with sheep and goat. How much dust would they raise? How come their police can't see? It's because there are other factors like it's coordinated theft and there's a lot of cover. But even then, the people we send there don't understand the terrain.
Absolutely.
They can't understand even the dust. Those people can move animals so that the dust is going in the same direction where the wind is blowing, and that's where you are.
I see.
So I'm saying,
if
Bilal has been comes from there, those are the people we must give preference when we are hiring people who understand the terrain. Yeah.
Poaching continues to be a huge menace to and a threat to our wildlife tourism, and Kenya adopted the shoot to kill policy with regards to responding to such threat. In as much as we are trying to tame this vice, communities living adjacent to these game reserves have come forth and say many rangers acting on suspicion. You kill just based on suspicion, no evidence as such. Don't you see the burden of killing should now be put on the shoulders of the judicial service, just to curb issues such as kidnappings, torture of those living under this next to these communities who are suspected to be poachers?
That reminds me of Del Monte with their plantation in Thika. where there are scaries and dogs, and they just see an African. Maybe the boys are playing around, and they think they want to come and steal pineapple, and they are tortured. Of course, there will be those who are stealing. And even then, why would you torture people and unleash dogs on African because of pineapples? We must, everything we do, we must put their human face. So even as we protect our wildlife, it cannot be at the expense of the people. You cannot dehumanize a whole race. You cannot dehumanize people, shoot them on the mere suspicion
that
and say
poachers.
you are protecting wildlife. It means in your thinking, back to philosophy, in your thinking, these animals are more important than the people. And these animals are there not in the interest of Kenyans, in the interest of foreigners. That is not sustainable. You can do what you want. You can kill some of us. At the end of the day, all these animals will be wiped out in the next 50 or so years. There will be nothing. All of them will have gone.
All right.
Which is what those people did to their animals. They are coming to view our animals because they finished theirs. They made the fur coats used by killing their animals.
All right.
You get what I'm saying?
I get.
We should not be driven there.
All right. Wildlife tourism is under threat because of one of the issues is because of historical land injustices. We have seen the ongoing tussle between owners of land adjacent to these reserves and what the government says who should own those farms. The government has tried to gazette some of these conservancies, but communities are saying this is our original land given to us by our ancestors, and they have actually come forth and say they'll fight to the nail to make sure they don't move out of that. And they even saying government wants to put there some cartels who will reap from the massive hotels that will be there and so forth. Can the land ministry intervene right now and prudently so?
It is not a question of land ministry. This is a government. This is a problem affecting the whole country. We must ask ourselves, how serious are we? That so many years after independence, foreigners own hundreds of thousands of tracts of land in the name of conservancies. When next door, Maasai or Samburu animals are dying. That is a bigger issue than can be handled by Minister of Lands. We need to address it. We need to be serious people. We need to know that this is our country. At all times, Kenyans must be made to feel that this is their country.
All right.
You cannot make them feel that way if they are squatting on a quarter an acre when foreigners have thousands upon thousands of land, acres of land, in the name of conservancies. It's not sustainable.
Second last. Many sitting administrations have put Najib Balala as the Cabinet Secretary for Tourism. And over time, he has profiled himself as the go-to person who should always be there in charge of tourism. Out of 10, how will you rank him?
2 out of 10. 0. There's nothing. He has not done anything.
But he's the face of tourism in Kenya.
Which face? Give it to a serious Kenyan like me and you see. How much is tourism bringing in this country, by the way? You'll be ashamed. Let me tell you something quickly before we end the program.
All right.
When I can see the cameraman is
flagging us down.
Is shouting at you. Listen. If we sold what is ours to the world using the digital platform so that we benefit from technology, nobody goes to disturb our animals. They are just there. We use modern technology. We beam our animals and various things and do our stories. We can get trillions of Kenya shillings. Billions of US dollars. This guy is bringing 100 billion shillings.
All right.
You can't call that money.
The very last. In a bid to drive up our level of success from wildlife tourism, do you feel the Kenyan government, and in particular Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife, has marketed itself so well outside there and really mapped our tourism in the global landscape?
Tourism has been reduced to sex tourism at the coast. Tourism has been reduced to running after animals and seeing the Maasai dance. That cannot even be an eighth of what this country has to offer. In terms of tourism, this country has so much to offer. Last time in your show, we talked about sports tourism.
Absolutely.
You know, look at Lake Naivasha. We are putting dirt into Lake Naivasha by way of flowers, poisoning the fish. When we can do lake tourism, skiing and boat riding, and that can bring in hundreds of billions of shillings. And the flower farms are only polluting the lake. And I'm saying, therefore, people like Balala are not even qualified to be clerks in the Ministry of Tourism.
I see.
Yeah.
So we should try to have that competitive edge over countries such as South Africa, Australia.
This country in terms of tourism.
If
you made Eldoret a center for sports, for athletic training,
I see,
competitions, and what have you, you will bring in lots of money, billions of US dollars. Najib Balala is, in my view, a typical failed Kenyan minister.
All right. Stay woke. You might be in that docket come next year or 2027. And that point by Herman Manyora takes us to the wrap of our conversation today on Business Glide. My name is Richard Mwenja, but before we leave, our fan of the week today is Boniface Njogu from Moisbridge.
Moisbridge, Benson Jogo, we used to call that place Hoisbridge.
Absolutely.
Salamia kila mutu kwa yote mpaka matunda. Thank you very much.
All right. It goes without saying that the Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife has to look into systemic failures in its part so that to boost its revenue collection from this very sector and see that the National Treasury going ahead can easily meet its development and recurrent expenditure and at the end of the day really improve the living standards of communities living adjacent to such game reserves and wildlife conservancies here in Kenya. But before I leave, remember to stay tuned to our Business Glide African Proverb of the Day. See you then.